Welcome back to our video series on mechanical systems. Today we're going to go over the remaining steps in the checklist to fill out. We're going to show you where to get that information, how to fill out the checklist. And the first step we're going to do today is step 5, which is the description of the work. And if you'll recall, we spent steps 1, 2, and 3 talking about who the players were. Step 4 was identifying the last day of work. And now step 5 is to describe the work that you did. Now, the Oklahoma legislature requires, or the statutes require, that both the pre-lien notice and the mechanical lien contain an accurate description of the work. So it's very important to make sure you get this information correctly. So where's the best place to get this information? It's quite frankly the contract that you have with the other side. So if you're a subcontractor, pull out your subcontract agreement. If you're a contractor, pull out your agreement with the owner. And in that document, it should accurately describe the work that you are to do under the scope of work section. Now, it sometimes is in the agreement itself, or sometimes it's attached as an exhibit. But within your contract, there should be a good description of the work that you did. You can also take a look at the invoices or the pay applications that you've prepared and sent out to the architect or to the owner or contractor describing the work you did. So I always encourage you to make sure you document that from the very beginning to get very clear as to the description of your work. Now, the question sometimes becomes how detailed does that description need to be? And my recommendation is make it as detailed as possible. Sometimes on big contracts, it can be 2 or 3 pages long. Don't necessarily recommend that, but you need to have a good basic description of the work you did. If you're a plumbing contractor, did you plumb the entire house or building, or did you only do a small portion of it? If you're an electrician, did you do the electrical work for the entire building or project, or only a portion of it? So it's important to be able to identify the specific work that you did and make sure you accurately describe it. Now, whenever we send out pre-lien notices, I don't typically attach invoices or pay applications or scope of work exhibits from the contract. However, in the mechanical lien, I always attach a mechanical lien or an invoice or pay application or the scope of work or something to document accurately the scope of work that you did and a description of the work. So that's step 5. Now, step 6 is to identify the person who requested the work. Now, sometimes this is confusing because the statute says identify the person who requested the work. Now, does that mean the individual within the company who asked for the work, or is it the company that asked for the work? So, for example, if you're a subcontractor and you have a contract with ABC Corporation, do you list ABC Corporation as the person who requested the work? And I typically say yes. I don't think you need to identify the specific person within ABC company or corporation who requested the work or the person who signed the contract, but just the entity who requested you to do the work. And I think the reason that that's important is that they're wanting the property owner or the general contractor, whoever, to know who all the players are. And they want to know where you are in the hierarchy of whether you're a subcontractor, a subcontractor, or a third-tier subcontractor or supplier. And I think it's just a way to describe who you are within the system. Now, step 7, I think, is one of the most important pieces of information. Just like in step 4 on the last day of work, the property information is so absolutely critical that you have to get it correct. If you don't get the correct information, you can lose your pre-lien notice information or your mechanical lien rights. Now, when I mean property information, I'm talking about not only the physical address, 123 Elm Street, I'm talking about the legal description as well. Now, the pre-lien notice just says the legal description or the address. I like to go ahead and get this information in my checklist and put it in both documents. That way you have a belt and suspenders kind of an attitude, and it just protects you. You're going to need the information anyhow, so let's just go ahead and get it in the checklist, and you have it available for the pre-lien notice and the mechanical lien notice. Now, where can you get this information? Because this is absolutely critical in your system. And the physical address is usually the street address. Like I said, 123 Elm Street, 123, whatever. It's the actual street physical location of where the project is. Now, typically that's an easy bit of information to get because it can be contained in the contract. You can call the county land records. You can call the county assessor in the county where the project's located. Most cities have a city numbering system or department that you can call and say, I need to locate a particular piece of property, and they can help you identify the physical address. A lot of times you can get it from the architect who's working on the project. So you just need to get the physical address first, and then probably the most important part of the physical or the property information is the legal description. Now, the legal description is absolutely required in the mechanic liens that you file. So what is the legal description? Well, the property has a description, a physical description of where the property is. It's the city numbering system. But the legal description is the information that's filed on the deed and filed with the land records. And you have to be able to have that information because when you file your mechanic lien in the county clerk's office of the county where the project's located, they will put a notation on that legal description record that there is a mechanic lien filed on that property. Now, it's the filing of that mechanic lien on that legal description is what gives notice to third parties that you claim an interest in that property. And it's so critically important to be able to get the legal description correctly. So then the question becomes, where do you get this legal description? There's a lot of different ways you can get this. Probably the simplest way is simply to call or go down to your local county clerk's office. Most counties have an area where you can go and look up a copy of the deed that will give you the actual parties, the owners of the property, and the legal description. And I know in Tulsa County and Oklahoma County, you can actually go there and they have people sitting at computers who are willing to help you. They're employees of the county who are happy to help you get this information, tell you where the document is. They can print it off for you, and you can actually have this deed that shows who the property was conveyed to and the legal description in your file. So that's a simple way to do or to get this information initially. You can also call the county assessor's office where the property is located. They will have the information as well. Now, the problem with the county assessor's office is that the legal description sometimes is abbreviated. So a lot of times I'll use the county assessor's office to get basic information first, and then I'll go to the land records and ask for help to find the actual deed. Because if you have the deed, that's really a critical piece of information, and it's accurate, and you don't have to worry about trying to guess what the legal description is because it's laid out in the deed for you. So I always recommend going to the county assessor's office to help you identify what the deed is or the number of the deed so that you can go to the county clerk's office and get a copy of it. Now, another method would be to have a paid service. There's a lot of paid services that you can get online and actually look up legal descriptions. I know in Tulsa County, they have a service where it's a paid service where you can look up legal descriptions on pieces of property. Some counties have free services, so be sure and look at land records, and you can look online and see if you can identify a piece of property and download a copy of the deed. The next area or the next resource that I use, and I use quite often, is what's called a title report from a title abstracting company. Now, this gets a little bit more involved simply because it costs anywhere from $100 to $500 to get this information. The average cost of a title report is about $125, $150. But this document will identify every person who claims an interest in that property. The title report will give you the legal description. It will provide the deed. It will provide any mechanic liens that's been filed on the property, any mortgages that have been filed on the property. And it's a great, great resource to help you get the correct property information. So property information is so absolutely correct are important to be able to accurately prepare your mechanic lien or your pre-lien notice. So again, you get your physical address, and then you get a legal description, and you put those in your checklist. And again, simply download it into a file. You can put it on your computer digitally, or you can have a copy of the deed or the title report or the county assessor's office report and put that into your file and give that to your lawyer to let he or she help you prepare the pre-lien notice and the mechanic lien. So that's step 7. So the next step is the amount owed. This is pretty self-explanatory. The bottom line is you're filing a mechanic lien is because you're owed money. And it's important to know what that exact amount is. And simply you deduct all your payments that the company has received and what the dollar amount is left on your contract. Now, one thing you want to make sure is that not only do you include the amount left on the contract, but any change orders, any back charges that you have against the contractor or the owner. It's important to make sure you get a final number that you can put in there that's accurate of what's exactly owed to you. Okay, now the next step is simply, after you have all of this information in your checklist, is to simply prepare and file the mechanic lien or send out the pre-lien notice. Now, hopefully you've accurately collected all 8 areas of information on your checklist. You have a file now that you have collected all of this information into, and that you can prepare whatever documents you need. That's the beauty of checklists. You can take this checklist, if it's filled out accurately, you can use this checklist to prepare any document you need in your mechanic lien system. It's that simple. It's just like the airline pilot who's using the pre-flight checklist. It's a very simple list to help you make sure you've covered all the information you need in order to prepare your documents. Now, after you have all of this information, the next step is to prepare your documents. Because you spent all this time preparing your checklist, filling out the information, collecting the information accurately. The next step is to file your documents. Now, to make sure that you know which documents to file, it's, again, very important to know where you are in the hierarchy of this project. Are you a general contractor? Are you a material supplier? Are you a subcontractor? Just remember what we talked about in the initial video is that a general contractor or a material supplier to the owner is someone who has a contract directly with the owner. So if your contract as a construction company is with the owner itself, or you're a material supplier directly to the owner, then you're considered an original contractor or general contractor or an original or general material supplier. The other classification is simply that you're a subcontractor or a material supplier to a sub. Now, if your contract is with someone other than the owner of the property, then you are a subcontractor or a sub-material supplier. And the reason, again, that this becomes so important is because as a general contractor, you have one time limit to file your mechanic lien. As a subcontractor or sub-material supplier, you have another time limit to file your mechanic lien or send out a pre-lien notice if you're required to. So it's absolutely critical to understand your definition of who or where you are in this hierarchy of this project so that you know now with the information that you have from your checklist to prepare the correct documents. And we'll get into that into the next video, so I look forward to seeing you on the other side.